Welcome, everyone, to So What Were You Wearing? Which is a show about the journey of love, all the twists and turns, and the grand adventure of it all. And joining us today, so glad that you all are here with us. And joining us today is Deborah Holmes. And she's a dear friend of mine who's agreed to talk and to share with us about her journey of love and exactly what happened. So we'll see how much of the juicy details we'll actually get, but we can hope and hope that she'll be able to share most of it with us. Sometimes people get, we do have our personal places that we have to take care of. And so join me in welcoming Deborah Holmes to So What Were You Wearing? Deborah, welcome.
Thank you, Heidi.
It's wonderful to have you here. And, as much as I've known you as a dear friend, I don't know this story of how you met your husband, Craig. So, why don't you start off and share with us, what was possibly the first time you ever laid eyes on him?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, just let me say thank you so much for inviting me to share with you, Heidi. I watched your other shows and I was so inspired hearing the stories that I really made me think about my own story and want to share with you. So I really appreciate the opportunity. So I first laid eyes on Craig, my husband, when I was 25 years old, and I was working in a children's home in Brighton, England. And I completed my undergraduate degree in sociology, and I wanted to be a social worker. That's always what I wanted to do. And I've been a social worker actually all my life. It's very boring. but
very important work, if I may add. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yes,
I do agree with you. It is important, and it's been a very good career for me. I feel it's been very fulfilling. Anyway, one day when I was at work, and we were a team of social workers and counsellors at this centre, children there were unable to live with their parents for one reason or another. They were in care, in residential care, and we were the caregivers, the team. And one day I heard that we had a new staff member coming, and he was from California. And I didn't know what to expect, but in strolled this tall, handsome American guy with his cowboy boots on.
Of course. Yeah.
With his plaid shirt and his blue jeans. And there he was as part of our team working together. So that's how we first met. We were on this team at the residential centre working together.
And this is in England, right?
This is in England, and it's a very interesting story how he got to be there, if I may share this.
Sure, absolutely. And what part of England, just so we can place it?
Oh, this is Brighton, which is East Sussex, which is south of London, about 50, 60 miles south of London on the coast. It's actually a lovely seaside town, Brighton by the sea, close to France. And it's a very nice kind of progressive community. I went to university there.
It sounds idyllic, just gorgeous. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a lovely place.
So tell us the story of how you got there. That's quite a leap from California, I suppose, right, to England. Okay.
Yes. So my husband was born in LA and grew up there, but he'd been to UCSB to get his undergraduate degree. And after he graduated, he was looking around for some opportunities. He'd been working at Deborah, but he wanted to travel. And he traveled somewhat before he went to university, but he wanted to really go and live in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw an ad in the news press, the Santa Barbara news press of all things. And it was somebody who was asking, is there anybody out there that would like to do a social work exchange? Meaning I come and work in your job, you come and work in my job for a period of time. And Craig responded to this ad in the news press. Now, he didn't actually do the exchange, but he ended up meeting this woman who put the ad in the paper, who lived in Brighton. And her husband came for a professorship, some kind of temporary professor exchange at UCSB. And she reached out to Craig because she got his response and said, look, I'm so sorry, I can't do the social work exchange. I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby, but let's meet up. And they met, and she introduced him to Brighton and to some of the opportunities, the resources, the job opportunities that were available there. And he went over to Brighton, and she kind of helped him to get this job opening.
That's amazing, Deborah. Is it, I mean, talk about a synchronicity that just, the doors open just by stepping forward like that.
Well,
That's
it is an interesting thought, Heidi, that, I know some people have known the love of their lives forever, but the idea of the coincidence of Craig responding to an ad, of meeting this person who was kind enough to reach back out to him, coming to work at the same place I was working. I mean, it's just an interesting, like you say, synchronicity.
It is. I've got chills right now. So that's what's going on for me. I'm just like, because it's really quite remarkable. And, a lovely, gorgeous place. Off he goes, leaves California, his home place, right, on this journey. And he strides into your facility right there in Brighton.
Yeah.
Was it a cowboy hat as well? Was that, or no, just the cowboy boots, I think.
I don't think he had the cowboy hat, actually, but
yes.
he looked, it's interesting because I've lived here a long time, but I do remember that you get more attention in a way if you're somebody from a different country. Absolutely. And it was the same for him. He was, people were very interested, and he was like I think a lot of the single women, to be honest with you, were kind of besotted with him.
Of course.
It's like everybody wanted to know Craig.
Right.
And the kids were also very, kind of fascinated with him and wanted to hang out with him and learn about where he was from. And so it was kind of cool.
And what were you wearing on that first day? If I can just slide that in, just even to imagine what you might have been wearing that day.
Yes. Well, it's interesting you asked me that because I couldn't remember, and I actually asked Craig because I knew you might ask me.
Right.
And first of all, I didn't have a lot of money and I didn't have a lot of clothes back then. It was kind of almost like paycheck to paycheck for me.
Of course.
And what Craig remembers that I wore quite a bit is I had a pair of ankle boots that he remembers me wearing that might have had a little heel. But also I had this leather jacket that it actually was like a communal jacket. I lived in a home with other people. It was like a communal household.
Yeah.
And everybody loved this one jacket. And we whoever got out the house first in the morning got to put it on. And he remembers me wearing that when he first met me. It was like a little bomber jacket. And, probably jeans and sweaters, because, it's cold in England. People wear a lot of sweaters, and they also wear a lot of scarves. I probably had a scarf on, one of those that you wrap around your neck a lot of times to keep warm. And
Right.
I honestly, I didn't have a lot of clothes, and it was more or less, that was my uniform. A
Right. Right.
jacket, a sweater, jeans, boots, and
It sounds like an adorable outfit. And since Craig remembers it, then, it obviously made an impression. So obviously you made the impression, not the clothes, but it's just kind of fun to think about what exactly was she wearing when he strode into the room. So then what happened? Like, what happened next in that day? Did you get to talk to him, or when was your first like real kind of like interaction together?
well, I do remember that we got to know each other through work,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a great opportunity to get to know him before we even went on a date.
Yeah.
I do remember going on a couple of dates with him. We went to some local pubs
Mm-hmm.
and went to a local restaurant, I think. He remembers something that was kind of like a moment for him when he had gone away on a little trip. It was right around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I met him at the station, at the train station, coming back. I don't remember this, but he
Mm-hmm.
said that he got off the train and I threw a snowball at him.
And it was love.
and, I, and when he was telling me this, I said, "Well, you know what that means, don't you? When a woman from Yorkshire throws a snowball at you?" And he
What does
said, "No, what does it mean?" I said, "It's a mating call."
And he responded, of course. Oh, oh my goodness. So he remembers that moment. And what moment do you remember? Like, as you were getting to know, I'm just thinking that probably you started to get to know each other through staff meetings and whatnot. And
Yeah.
then one thing led to the next, and he asked you
One
out.
one thing led to the next.
Yeah.
I remember going over to, he was living in a communal home as well, because that's what you
Hmm.
did back in the day and we didn't have much money. And I remember going to his home and visiting him, going into his bedroom, and it was winter time and it was cold. And I don't think the home had central heating. And he was especially miserable in the cold weather because he's from California. He's not used to
Of
this English
course.
winter. And I
Right.
remember going into the bedroom and we had a little heater, a little space heater, and we were huddled around it. And I just remember that moment thinking, you know, I really like this guy.
Yeah.
He's so gentle and but in some ways strong, and he just has a great personality, and I love the way he interacts with the kids at Highlands where we worked.
Hmm.
And I just felt like, we had some things in common that we had started to explore together, our love of travel, and we both like exercising and being in nature. And I remember just being in the room and thinking, yeah, I think that this could go somewhere.
Interesting. Wow. Right there in his bedroom, cuddled around the heater as you're
Yeah.
thinking, right, in that cold winter day there in
Mm,
England, thinking, and that must have been kind of a reach in a way, knowing that he's from Los Angeles, from California. Here you are, there's obviously your family, I'm sure, his family, and all of the dynamics. But just that this thought just kind of gently comes through your mind, thinking, you know, there's some, there's something here that's real, is what I'm hearing you say. So it's
yes, I think for sure that started to just bubble up for me. And yes, it was an adventure, and it was not going to be the easiest thing in the world, navigating
right.
how we lived in different countries. We were at different in some ways different points in our life. Well,
Mhm.
maybe I could
How so?
explain
How
that.
so? Yeah, tell
Well,
us a little bit about that.
he was signed up, and maybe he already had been accepted to go to Antioch University in San Francisco to do his master's degree in psychology.
Oh, so this was his coming to England was really for like maybe 3 months, 3
It,
weeks?
it, it wasn't a long time. It was probably maybe 6 months, I think, I want to say.
Yes, yeah. And so
Yeah, so
yeah, so
he was already kind of committed to returning to California,
right.
and that was his intention.
Right.
And I was kind of trying to launch my career as a social worker in Brighton.
Right.
And I hadn't really intended, I mean, my intention was to stay there and
Of
possibly
course. It's
do
home.
my, yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
I had all my friends and all
Oh,
my people I graduated from university with, and I had a strong network of women friends as well that who I really
yeah.
enjoyed there in Brighton. But so what happened? I'll just explain what happened. Was the time came when he was going to return to
Mhm,
California, and
mhm.
he said to me, "Why don't you just come and visit? Just come and visit. Just come and see what." I'd never been to North America. I had traveled a lot, but mainly in Europe. And
Yeah.
also, I had lived in Israel for a while before going to
Mhm.
university.
That's some significant travel, definitely.
Yeah, and I was excited about the opportunity to visit there and just to have him there as somebody I could be with and who could, show me around. And
Good.
so I said, okay, I'm going to visit you. And
I'll bet he was relieved, as were you, I would think. Because it must have just been so hard to even part at that point, right? I mean, I would imagine.
yeah, yeah. Although, we hadn't got to the point in our relationship where we were saying, okay, this is it. We are going
Mhm,
to get married, or we want
mhm.
to make this commitment. And we weren't really there yet. We'd only known each other about 4 or 5 months or so.
Right.
And even though we had strong feelings and things were going well, we
Mhm,
weren't really at the point where we were saying, okay, this is going to be a forever
mhm.
relationship.
Right.
So anyway, he left and he flew home, and I came over. It was maybe a month later that I
Mhm.
came over to Los Angeles, and it was a culture shock for me,
I
actually.
I can only imagine, seriously, seriously, flying into LAX from England, right? Oh my goodness. Did you fly into LAX or fly into Santa Barbara?
I flew into LAX, and
Okay.
I was very excited to be there. It was like a big adventure. I felt sad about quitting my job, but I knew they weren't going to hold the job open for me, so I left.
Wait. Quitting your job. Let's dial into this a little closer then, because I was
Okay.
thinking you were just coming for a visit, but when you say quitting your job, that sounds a little more serious. You know what I'm saying? So
Well,
what were you
what
thinking as you flew out?
what was I thinking?
What were you
Well,
thinking?
I was thinking, if I'm going to go all the way out there and
Yes.
Craig's willing to receive me and show me around, I want to see some of California. I didn't just want to be there a week or two. And I found out that I could get a visitor's visa for 6 months.
Yes.
That was what could do. So I said, I'm going to go for the visitor's visa, go for 6 months.
Good for you. That is phenomenal. That's really exciting. I was thinking you were just going to go visit, go for 2 weeks, come back, where this is really a real visit. Okay, so
Yes.
now I'm on board. I just have to track, this is important. These are important details because
Well,
that sends a different kind of message, right? It communicates something different that, you're staying a while, and you'll go back, but you're staying a while for when you travel out. So I don't mean to interrupt. Please carry on.
No, no, Heidi, that's a good point, because I guess I could have chosen just to go for a couple of weeks and have a
Oh,
holiday and go back.
right.
But I suppose I was thinking, it's an opportunity. Who knows where it will lead to? Hey, where it led to is
Tell
I didn't go back for 4 years.
Okay, I've got chills again. I can't help it. Seriously? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. How,
So,
I mean, tell us more.
well,
From
the
6 months to 4 years. I'm with you.
visit.
Okay.
So, the visitor's visa did run out,
Mhm.
expire, and I was in the somewhat precarious position of being an illegal immigrant.
Sure.
They're pretty strict about people who overstay their visas.
Mhm.
And
Oh, I know.
so I may as well jump into this next big thing, Heidi, which is we did get married.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations. That's fantastic. You got married, right? So at 6 months or thereabouts, right? Is that
Thereabouts.
tell us how you came to that, getting married,
Well,
if you want. I
I
mean,
was
we'd love to
really,
know. I'd love to know.
you'd love to know. Okay, I'll tell you. I wasn't really ready to go home after
Mhm.
6 months. We had traveled. We'd driven up to Big Sur. We'd gone camping. He'd shown me around parts of California. It was a lovely trip. We
Mhm.
ended up in San Francisco, where he was going to school to do his master's degree.
Right.
And I loved San Francisco. It reminded me of Europe in some ways, more so than
Mhm.
other parts of California that I'd seen. And just the stimulation and the excitement of the city and all of the cultural opportunities there and the beautiful geography. I really wanted to stay, and I wanted to work there. Of
Sure.
course, I couldn't work because I was on this visitor's visa. I
Mhm.
did I did some I actually did a few little jobs here and there just to earn some money. Don't tell the
Shh. It's our little secret. No problem.
immigration. No,
Right.
I just did some housework and some
Yeah,
things to earn a little,
of course.
pay. I had to pay. I was paying rent and trying to, live there.
Sure.
But it came down to it, and I said to Craig, I we weren't quite ready to get
Mhm.
married,
Right.
honestly. But I said to him, if we could get married, that would really solve all my problems. I could stay, and
Mhm.
he was excited about it. I think he was not quite ready either. Neither of us would have chosen to get married at that moment in time.
Right, right,
It
right.
wasn't as if we'd kind of come to that decision. It was more kind of forced on us a little bit in order to stay, for me to stay and for us to stay together.
Right. And to me, I kind of look at it as a choice that you both did make in a way, because you cared so much for each other, is what I'm hearing, you know, as well as, yeah, and I hear forced upon you as well. But a beautiful, a beautiful thing to occur, or so I would think. So tell me, how did that, I mean, did that work? How did your families do? How did all of
That's a
that
funny
play out?
story, Heidi.
No, it's a lot. And I don't mean to, I just, to me, to me, I always think of choice, right? I think of the choices we make. And we can say that a choice was forced upon us. And yet you both chose to step forward rather than you return to England and, because there was another choice on the table, but you both chose otherwise. So that's just my sensibility of it and feeling of it as well. So.
Yeah. Well, when I look back at myself at that age, I didn't, unlike some women, I didn't have a lot of big fantasies around what a wedding would be, or even I honestly didn't think I would get married. It wasn't something that I thought about a lot or fantasized about or thought
So,
had to
so,
happen in my life.
so growing up and that sort of thing, it wasn't a big thing for you. It was just, and so
No.
potentially then in this time and space, and I just want to we're just kind of exploring it just so that our listeners can get a deeper feeling for what was actually transpiring, that getting married hadn't been a high priority for you. Obviously, it was really something you hadn't really thought you were going to do, and yet here you are with a man who you obviously care very deeply for, Craig, and that opportunity or a doorway comes to, at 6 months, there's a doorway, and part of it is getting married. And that was more of a, Phil, tell me, it was more of what would you look at that as, more of a vehicle kind of to use to continue in a life that you wanted to choose? Is that kind of a better way to say it, or how would you say it?
Um, that is a way that I would say it. I mean,
And just trying to explore it, because there's so many people do have these huge things around weddings, right? And getting married.
they absolutely do. And I do think that, I don't know, for me, because I grew up and going through university, I was very influenced by feminism.
Mhm.
And I became quite, I think, independent, and I wasn't necessarily thinking that my happiness and my success would depend on getting married or
Mhm.
having a man in my life. I think I felt I wanted to be confident about just pursuing my own path.
Mhm.
But this was an opportunity for us, and it's hard to think back to exactly how I felt, to be honest, Heidi.
Oh, it's,
I
yeah.
felt like it was convenient. It was
Mhm.
convenient. I don't wish to like cast aspersion on marriage as an institution. I know some people value it so highly and see and think of it as very sacred, and that's fine too. But
Mhm.
for me, it was more expedient. It was more
Mhm.
of an expedient thing to do. So
Absolutely.
so I'll be honest about that. I
That's
hadn't,
great.
yeah. I
No, it's
mean,
obviously you wouldn't have done it if you didn't care for, I mean, so, but it was, yeah, the path forward, and it was the choice to make. Yeah.
now I think back and, we've been married for 41 years. So,
Oh,
very often marriages that maybe come from grow out of different situations or circumstances can be these long-term committed. I
mm,
have no regrets about marrying Craig. I
oh,
feel like we have been extremely compatible over the years and grown in different ways together. And who would have known?
right. Who would have known? And that journey point there that you took in complete faith and stepping forward, 41 years later, here you are, enjoying each other's company, which you haven't shared yet, but, at least, but yeah, and here you are together. So, it's really quite, I'm just totally fascinated and intrigued and excited to hear this part of the story, truth be told, because it's, there's so many things. It's pragmatic. It's, and look where it led. So, and all from that synchronistic, if we go back to the start, right, of even how Craig ended up over in England, and
Yeah.
then you and Craig coming back, him coming back, then you coming back, and
Mm.
all of those little, as we say, the twists and turns along the journey. And then here you are. And I'm sure that even after the, you know, Right. I mean, that's a whole story in itself. I'm sure the family responses to the getting married and how that transpired and all of that would be interesting to hear if you want to share about that or how that went or what the next part of the story is that you want to share.
Actually, I will share about the families because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
So I made a decision right away to tell my family that I was married. They were all back in England,
Oh my goodness.
and
So you told them afterwards, is that right?
I think I may have even told them before that I was
Okay.
getting married,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided best to just be completely honest with them and open about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Craig, on the other hand, his parents are in Los Angeles, my parents are in England.
Right.
He chose not to tell his parents
Oh my.
about us getting married.
Oh my.
And yeah, and I don't know, I think that he was a little bit nervous about that they would be disappointed
Mm-hmm.
that we're doing this maybe without including them or consulting them, or maybe it was a different kind of a marriage to what people
Mm-hmm.
normally think of. And so he chose not to tell. And we were both okay with that. I felt a little bit awkward because I would see them, we'd visit with them, and sometimes I wish that
Oh,
they did know
yeah.
that we were married, but I understood, why he wanted to do it that way. But here's
Mm-hmm.
the funny part of the story, Heidi.
Oh, yeah.
We continued on. Fast forward, we're living together in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Craig finishes his master's degree in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I end up going back to England a little bit early. We kind of made a decision that we were going to try and live in both places. Some of the time in California, some of the time in England. That was
Mm-hmm.
kind of our plan. And
Wow.
I wanted to do my master's degree in social work, and I got accepted back at the University of Sussex in Brighton. And
Wonderful.
and so I actually gone a bit early because my mom was also diagnosed with cancer,
Mm.
my
Mm.
mother, and I wanted to go back and see her and spend some time with her.
Right.
And so I went back a little early. Craig joined me when he
Mhm.
completed his master's degree, so we had a bit of a separation there.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, when he came over, it was wonderful, and we settled back into Brighton, living together. And his parents wanted to come and visit. They wanted to visit us in Brighton, and Craig and I talked, and I suggested, or one of us suggested, maybe it's time to tell my
Yeah.
parents, Craig's parents. My parents already knew,
Right.
and he was very nervous about doing it. And
Mhm.
but I remember I wasn't there, but he picked
Mhm.
them up from the airport.
Yeah.
I think it was Gatwick back in the day, the closest one to Brighton. And
Mhm.
it was all lovely seeing them, welcoming them to England.
Mm.
And he took them to lunch at a little pub on the way back to
Mm.
Brighton. And he sat them down and he said, Mom, Dad, I have something really important to tell you. And they said, Deb's pregnant.
Oh, isn't that precious?
And he said, No, 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 it's not that. But it is to do with Deb. Deb and I are married, and we've been married for 4 years.
Oh my goodness. Deborah, what did they say? I mean,
Oh, they were fabulous about it. They were
oh,
totally accepting. They were totally okay. They were
oh,
happy. They
oh.
they said congratulations. We're thrilled. I mean, I think that he was worried they were going to be really upset and disappointed, but it was the opposite.
Isn't that wonderful?
They
That's
were so happy for him
what
and
a
me.
I can see you in this pub, right? And with it maybe raining out. Was it raining outside? But just that oh, that must have been what a beautiful, beautiful scene. It's like out of a movie, type of thing. It's just really profound, and that there was a warm response. You must have just melted, I would think, or felt good about the situation after that.
I felt really good about it. And they wanted to also have a celebration for us. They
Oh.
wanted to do something to invite the family
Mm-hmm.
and have a, retrospective celebration, I guess you could say,
Oh.
and acknowledge us for being married. And I mean, Craig's mom and dad is very, very accepting. Not they both my father-in-law passed away not long ago.
Mm-hmm.
My mother-in-law died about 15 years ago.
I'm
But
sorry.
both of, I know,
Yeah.
but very sweet, sweet people and non-judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just received it so well, and no hard feelings. Just welcome to the family, and
Oh, beautiful.
yeah.
That's lovely. That is just, and so sweet to have that happen while they were in England too, so that you could all celebrate together with your family as well.
Uh
I
huh.
imagine. Yeah. Wow. That's really quite a story, Deborah. That is just beautiful. That goes so far, really into how love does happen and how love can take you on a journey that you wouldn't even expect or possibly even choose, right? Basically the choices kind of get, seem to get made for you along the way, which is or can, and like you've shared with us today. It's just remarkable. That is just extraordinary, Deborah. It's just beautiful. And as you continued on that journey from that point, was there any other things that, kind of were symbolic as far as, did you continue living in England? Did you live in both places like you had thought you were going to? Or what happened
um,
next?
no, that was the plan, and
Mm-hmm.
we were in Brighton for about 4 years, and I did my master's degree in England. Craig found a job,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a job after I graduated, and honestly, it was such an awesome job. I absolutely loved this job. I didn't think I would get it. It was a bit of a stretch for a newly graduated social worker, and it
Mm-hmm.
was very competitive. But I got it, and I was absolutely thrilled. But
Congratulations.
we had made an agreement that we would go back to California, and we thought of it as more like 4 to 5 years, and then we'd go back.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back to California that time was very hard for me because I did love my job, and
Oh,
because I miss my friends and I miss my family.
right.
And my mother was doing better.
Mm-hmm.
She had cancer, but she was in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was a little bit of a wrench too.
Yeah.
Leaving when she'd been through that.
Mm-hmm.
But so for both of us, it was kind of hard being away from our families and being away from our home countries.
Yeah.
But that was the last time we did it because I got pregnant very shortly after we came back to
Oh,
California.
right.
And then having children, and well, having our daughter first, it just became so much harder to do this moving around
Mm-hmm.
with. And then I had my son 3 years later, our,
Mm.
our son, and we just both of us felt like with two young children
Right.
doing that toing and froing, it
Yeah.
just became harder. So we settled here in California.
Got it. Yes. No, it makes sense. The children were born in California, and for that stability, yeah, it's another choice point along the way, right? That, and just how that the beauty of that kept you in one place in California. And were there any, challenges along the way that just, were times, just in the story of love, on the journey of love, were there challenges, or was it possibly the two of you were always able to sort things out, so it never got to a point of, just like an impasse type of a thing?
I would say that we've had all of the normal ups and downs and challenges that all couples have. I
Right.
mean,
How can you not, right?
yeah, I mean, I just
No,
think that
that's how you
that's
grow.
really is how you grow. I mean, I think that, well, we're both therapists, both of us. So
Um,
I think we do at least know in theory
mhm,
what are the components of a healthy relationship. And we are good about communicating together and trying to work things out when things
mhm,
don't go well. And we've had all the usual stresses and strains and developmental stresses that most marriages go through. I mean,
mhm,
having children, it just completely changes the relationship. I mean, we had 9 years together before we had children, where we could just be
mm,
pretty selfish in a way and do
mhm,
what we wanted to do and act on our impulses when we wanted to. And then
mhm,
having children, it's wonderful, and I don't regret it one bit.
mhm.
But it kind of puts your own life on hold, and it just kind of turns your relationship upside down in many ways, because the focus all of a sudden is them and their
Right.
needs, and
Mhm,
taking care of them.
mhm,
So yeah, well, I can think of um, a lot of times when we've struggled, to try and keep our relationship alive and keep it fresh, and
mhm.
give each other the attention that we both
Yeah.
want, because the children tend to take all of that, and
Right,
their needs are paramount, and they take priority.
right.
um, but so I would say, but the other thing that's helped me personally, Heidi, is
Yeah, Deb.
through my work as a social worker. I have,
Mhm.
studied some aspects of family dynamics and couples relationships, and just help, one particular researchers that I really, really like are the Gottmans. I don't know if you've heard of them, the Gottman
The
Institute.
Gottman Institute. Yes, I have heard of it. It's supposed to be
And
fantastic. Yeah. I don't know where it's located, but I've heard of it.
I think it might be in Seattle,
Okay.
Washington University.
Mhm.
But some of the things that they bring out in their research that are so helpful is the idea that most couples have a huge amount of perpetual problems. Is maybe like 80 or 85% of the issues that they fight about are
Mm,
perpetual problems. In other words, they're never going to get resolved.
right.
It's kind of depressing,
It
but
is.
but at
But
the
it's
same time, it gives
yeah.
you this hope. They talk about how you just have to kind of think about how you're going to navigate it and negotiate it,
Mhm.
and deal with something that's a perpetual problem in a way that so your expectations are different.
Right. Right. So it's kind of, it navigates into managing rather than, managing the 85% that is, yeah, to be expected and is not going to go away. Yeah, that could be a little depressing. I get that. But knowing that it's a reality check, right? And if you do something different as far as a different relationship, that same 85% is still going to be there, right? So just knowing that is helpful to just kind of go, stay the course, you know. Let's.
Well, that's a very good point, Heidi, because I do think that another part of it for me is the idea that you're doing a lot of your own work about growing up, being in a
Mhm.
relationship for a long time, and you think maybe at times you think, oh, if only I was with somebody else, I wouldn't be having all these problems. The truth is, you
Mhm.
probably would.
From what, yeah, from
From
what you're saying, yes.
because a lot of what you bring, you bring your own emotional baggage, you bring your own history,
Mhm.
and you have to kind of sort through that to some degree in order to be together with another person in a healthy way and
Mm.
get through all the stresses and strains of life. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not making it sound very romantic.
But
It is very
it's
romantic,
reality. Hey.
but it's also the reality of, I think for me at least,
Yeah.
how you survive and how you thrive in a long-term relationship. You
Ex-
have to have good humor, you have to be able to laugh at things, and you have to have realistic expectations, I think.
Okay, good humor, realistic expectation. No, that was where I was going next. So you're already there. It's like, what's the recipe, right? What's the recipe for this? And you had mentioned romantic, but and that these things are really foundational so that you can have romance at whatever year that you're together, I would think. But I love it. So it's what were those key items again? Please, you got to have
Well,
good humor. Good humor
I,
is one,
I
right?
think having a good sense of humor and being able to laugh together, and also to kind of forgive each other, and be able to accept influence from each other, because there are going to be some issues that you always clash about.
Mm-hmm.
The perpetual problems, right? And it's
Right.
like, how can you sort of be, I don't know, in some ways forgiving or accepting,
Mm-hmm.
or accept influence from the other one, knowing that maybe you'll never fully agree about something,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of like the give and take of that part of it that I think helps. And also just having realistic expectations. I
Yes.
think that, and another thing I think about as a sociologist is how the nuclear family is like this pressure cooker,
Mm-hmm.
really. It's like
Mm-hmm.
in the olden days, and we might glamorize the olden days, but I think there were a
Mm-hmm.
lot more extended family around, and the
Right.
networks of support were greater. And now
Mm-hmm.
we have these, little units, and two people together are expected to meet all of the other one's needs and be there all the time for them, and live together. And nowadays with the pandemic, living together, working
Mm-hmm.
together,
Right.
raising children together. I mean, it
Right.
does put a lot of pressure on people.
It
And
does.
I think sometimes you can be a little bit unrealistic about, what the other, whether somebody can meet every last need that you have. It may not be that way.
Right. 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 And that there's a give and take with that, and to recognize that, and to understand exactly that it won't always necessarily be everything that we want, right? And that can be a rich experience in itself, just getting past that and recognizing that there's more important things to be considering and thinking about as far as the general overall equilibrium of a relationship, and that it doesn't have to be one or the other. So I hear that. And it sounds like over time too, when you're with a partner who's willing to communicate and share and talk about these things in a civilized and safe way, that this is possible, to actually have these conversations and to be able to navigate it on this journey of love that has, I mean, it's multidimensional, right? There's so many different ways that love occurs. And, you know, the stuff that we see in fairy tales and in movies isn't necessarily, that's just the top 15% maybe. And the other 85% is something to be worked on. So
That's my viewpoint, Heidi. I mean, everybody's different and everybody has a unique experience, but that's been my experience.
It's
And I
wonderful.
don't,
Yeah.
I feel great. I feel grateful that I have been in a long-term relationship and I've been forced to kind of grapple with some of these things and maybe grow as a person too
Oh,
through all of this.
right. No, it sure sounds like it. It absolutely does. And it's just so beautiful to come out with these learnings for our viewers so that they can hear your story and hear how you've worked with this. And, you know, the good humor, the managing expectations, recognizing that issues that are going to come up in a relationship are, you know, 85%, you know, across the board. And just knowing these things can be very helpful and sustaining, I would think, so that in a way you realize you're not alone. You know, this isn't a unique experience to me, and that there you can stay the course, which obviously you have through 41 years of marriage, you know, but to stay and to grow, like you were saying, to blossom yourself, possibly in maybe ways that are unexpected, or in ways, what would you think? I mean, as far as the growth that comes from really deepening into these places, what do you think happens?
Well, I do think that when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody and you're with them a long time,
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of force you in some respects to deal with your own emotional baggage and the things that you're bringing from your own family of origin. I think, in a
Mm-hmm.
way, you know, both of you are bringing issues in, maybe unconsciously,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of, in a way, forces you to look at your own core issues,
Mm-hmm.
maybe some of which aren't resolved yet. But
Mm-hmm.
resolving them is kind of like helping you, allowing you, or opening up the gateway for you to have a healthier relationship with your partner, when
Mm-hmm.
you're able to do that and when you're able to share. It's I so that's kind of where I feel perhaps my growth has been,
Mm-hmm.
and just being able to, you know, just almost like be true to yourself, be
Mm.
authentic, be an authentic person with yourself and with a partner. I know that sounds kind
It
of like
sounds
elemental,
fantastic. Oh, no,
but
no.
it's not easy. It's not easy for people to
Right.
really be who they, and also to just be able to accept all the shadow sides of yourself, that we all have them, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
being able to bring them out and look at them, and look at them with your partner, and have
Mm-hmm.
them look at them and accept them on some level too. I think that, to me, is where the growth comes.
That's beautiful, Deborah. Oh my goodness. Right. And to look at be able and willing to look at the shadow part of ourselves, and to be true to ourselves, and to be able to share that with our partner is so vital for the vitality of a relationship, both with ourselves, is what I'm hearing, and then also with our partner. So it's really, you know, relationship with self and with partner. So
Mm.
beautifully said, Deborah. Oh my goodness. That's so valuable. And just that real core truth of being true to ourselves, true to yourself, you know, and what that means, and how we all have to stand up and be true and authentic for ourselves,
Mm.
and in that vital place. So thank you for underscoring that. That's just, wow, fantastic. No, I'm just so grateful for everything you've shared. And it's just such a learning, on so many levels for our listeners for relationship. And, from the beginning of the unknown, and stepping in continually to the unknown that you and Craig did together. And, through to the learnings that have come from staying the course. So it's really, really, it's inspiring me, Deborah, very much. I really
Oh, thank you, Heidi.
am so grateful. Do you have any final words? I mean, you've given us so much wisdom already, but are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners? And hopefully they'll be able to see you again in the future if we do another interview, if you're willing to do that. But just
It's
before we
been,
go, what would you like to
I,
share?
I think one thing that I found is that sometimes when you're going through a really tough patch or a difficult patch with your partner, just have the hope and the belief that things will change. And very often there are sort of developmental trajectories and ups and downs and things that happen in life because of your age, because of your circumstances, because you have children, because you have parents, all kinds of or financial issues. And I
Mhm,
think that just being able to take the long view and say, well, maybe right now we're in this developmental time of our lives or this developmental phase, but it will change.
mm,
And I think that makes helps you not to feel so mired. If
mhm,
you're feeling sad or you're experiencing more conflict, it's not going to be always that way.
mhm. That's beautiful. It's kind of like the clouds will pass, is what I hear you say. Yes, they will. Yeah, that change is possible and to not
Mm-hmm.
be, despondent because of the current circumstances. Very sage advice, Deborah. Thank you. It's been just wonderful to spend this time with you and to hear that, the grand adventure of love and meeting Craig and how it really took you to places that you may have never imagined. And here you are today sharing it with us. So thank you so much, Deborah.
Oh, thank you, Heidi. I really appreciate the opportunity, and you. It's wonderful to be able to be. Your questions have really helped me think about this as well. So thank you for your thoughtful questions.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for your thoughtful answers and your comprehensive guidance. And, with your expertise as well, which I want to acknowledge, from everything you've learned that you've shared with us today. So, really, big thank you. And I'll just look forward to circling back with you so that possibly our viewers can hear from you again. Thank you,
Okay,
Deborah. All
thank
right.
you. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye now.
Bye bye.